making sure you give the great service at every single point became key to me.
There's that industry, I suppose, ethos that everyone needs to leverage, everyone needs to take risks, get commercial vowels for bloody 2-bed ensuite HMO and never be able to sell it.
In those terms, maths don't lie. Numbers and figures just do not lie. All I see now is houses just going empty and then viewings taking, which in my opinion is crazy because you're just maximising void periods for landlords. And he pushed it aside. He said, don't ever come to me with that. Only come to me when you've got a thank you letter from the client. That's all I want to see.
Wow.
I used to have 2 purple Lego bricks at the bottom of my computer screen thinking if they can do it in that model, I can do it.
Before we kick this episode off, I want to let you know about our next show that will be taking place in Manchester on Wednesday, the 4th of September at Manchester City Stadium, the Etihad. Doors to the show will open from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. We have 2 keynote stages, multiple exhibitors, and lots of opportunity for networking. Details to the show is in the description. Tickets are free. We hope to see you there. Welcome to another episode of the Property Developer Show, the podcast. Today, I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Dale Cox. Dale has an estate agency background, as well as being the local auctioneer who I certainly go to for some deals and also potentially selling some units as well. Dale, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So I know you're Northwest based, but you came from Oxford.
I did.
Doing the estate agency side. Let's explore, I guess, your journey as a property person, as an estate agent, because I know it's a unique side of it. Estate agents and property investors, you know, that's doing business together is the easiest way, I guess, in the industry for both you and the developer. So how did you get into that?
Yeah, I think you're really right. I think there has to be a synergy between both to start off with. But getting into it was... Do we go really personal on this? I'm not sure. Yeah, let's just delve right into it. So I've always been interested in property from school age. My family, my brother is a tradesperson. Friends have all gone into it. You asked me to put a shelf up and it's falling down. So I tried it. I tried the apprentice side. I even tried an apprenticeship site management route as well. But the minute they asked me to relocate to a different location for the next site, I kind of got cold feet and I didn't want to leave my mum's house. And I was like 19 or something, and I quit. And it was really bad. And I don't think it was a mistake, because I don't think you ever look back on things that you haven't done. You don't regret those. You just regret the things that I tried it. It wasn't for me. And I fell into estate agency, really. I played a pretty good level of football in my younger time, and the traditional estate agency always made Saturdays or working Saturdays essential, really. You had to work Saturdays, otherwise you didn't get the sales, you didn't get the deals, therefore you didn't get your commission. And estate agents aren't paid well now, let alone back in the early 2000s. It was, I think my basic salary was something like £7,000.
Wow.
For what would have been nearly a 50-hour week. But your commission was heavy. And if you didn't earn your commission on a Saturday, it just wasn't there. So I applied for a few estate agency roles. No one would take me if I couldn't work Saturdays. So I ended up going into advertising sales, which was a crazy line to go down. But one of my biggest clients was a local estate agent. And I always told him my dream of being an estate agent. That was kind of the goal I wanted to go down. But I had this hurdle. And he said, well, if you work for me, you can work 5 days a week, don't have a day off during the week, but then just work up until 12 o'clock on a Saturday and get all your sales in then. If you're still hitting your targets, we'll continue to do it. And he gave me that break. And he really did give me that break, and it was great. And I was with them for 5.5 years. And then football kind of went, a realization I wasn't going to make it. And just playing like local football with my friends. And then I think my career sort of needed to take priority. Mid-20s, I needed to do something and take that next progression. So I then started working most Saturdays and just playing football as and when. And we then hit the recession. sort of 2008, 2007 time. And before that, life was great. You know, I was earning great money for a young lad, 20, traveling the world. It was brilliant, single, all those things most of the time, on and off. And then the recession hit, as I said, and things got a little bit tougher. And some months you weren't selling houses. You really were just relying on selling the repossessions that came in because they were cheap. And the people with money, which is a common theme throughout life, still made money because they were able to buy these repossessions quickly. And they were the only ones that we were really selling, if I'm honest. A lot of people were in negative equity, so they couldn't sell. So I made that conscious decision in 2008 to try a different venture, and that's lettings. And I moved to a purely letting agent, which was one of Oxfordshire's probably most prestigious agencies. Are we allowed to name names?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
shout outs.
And actually, it's probably prominent for me to do that because I truly believe that they structured my path that I then went on. So this was a company called Finders Keepers, owned by what I can only describe as a formidable lady, Mary Channer, her name is. And
shout out Mary.
Yeah, shout out to Mary. I hope she's still here. Bless her. So when I was there in 2008, I'm going to be really kind now and say she was probably in her mid-60s, maybe a little bit older. I'm not sure. Apologies, Mary, if you're listening to this. But she scared the hell out of me. Like literally scared the hell out of me. She knew what she wanted. She had standards and she set those standards throughout the company, I should say. And we had 8 branches across the whole of Oxfordshire, and we ran Oxfordshire for prestigious clients. And it was the scene. It was the advice, not the price. Nobody quivered about the price that we charged. We gave everybody a great service. And coming from a sales background, 7-8 years in sales, I'll never forget my first full week at that company of seeing my colleagues not really pushing for the deal. And I was booking viewings all the time. I was booking valuations. And my branch manager at the time was a gentleman called Tristram Torrance. And if you could ever get closer to a James Bond character, it was him. Suave, sophisticated, well-groomed. I mean, if I turned up to the office with a beard, I'd be sent upstairs with a razor and shaving cream, and we were made to shave at the office.
Yeah.
Suit, tie, the lot, 3-piece suit. You had to be well presented, which I think was probably a part of your interview stage. Did you look the part? Did you have a double-barreled surname? I didn't. But I still made it in. It was very much perception was everything, as well as your ability as well. And at the end of my first week, I was feeling really good. And I'd secured 7 lets. I'd had 3 new instructions. Nobody was near me in terms of, I think the closest was 2 lets and a couple of people had 1 instruction. So I thought, I have nailed it this week. And I went to him, all complete files on his desk on the Friday. And I went, not a bad first week, is it, Mr. T? And he pushed it aside. He said, don't ever come to me with that. Only come to me when you've got a thank you letter from the client. That's all I want to see.
Wow.
And I walked away. So this was 2008. I walked away and I thought, this isn't the company for me. It really isn't. How are they not seeing my hard work? I've busted a gut this week. Viewings out of hours. I've called so many people. I've rung the database. I must have made 100 calls this week to try and get new instructions. I've got them on. They're fully compliant. They're listed. Viewings on them on the Saturday. I thought I probably made this company about over a year, about 30 grand in my first week. And that really set there. So I went home that weekend and I said to my now wife, I genuinely don't think I've made the wrong decision here. But she said, well, you know what you've got to do, haven't you, Dale? You do know what you've got to do. Get those thank you letters. So I did. I just made that my mission then to then start trying to aim for thank you letters. And that's all you got, because back then we didn't really have, sounds really bad, doesn't it? 2008, back then. We didn't have Trustpilot reviews. We didn't have Google reviews as much. People didn't really take much notice of those. So you had thank you letters all across the office. It was great. And in their marketing, which they're really good at. So I just made it my mission then to get thank you letters, and you weren't allowed to ask for them either. So if they heard you ask for them, it's kind of a no-go, really. And it took me about 6 weeks to get a little old lady. She actually sent a box of chocolates and a thank you letter, because I'd let her house out, been to see her. She'd inherited it. She didn't know what to do. Managed to persuade her, keep it. It's an investment, top up your pension, etc. And she had thanked me for my advice, and probably secured what she said would have been a lot of wasted money if she'd have sold and banked the money. And that was just then became addictive. And it really changed my whole perception of the customer journey. And off the back of that, making me changing my way of being that traditional 1980s double glazed salesman, estate agent, wide boy. I was that mold 20 years ago. That was me, sharp suited, sharp tongued. I would, everyone used to say I'd sell sand to the Arabs or whatever. But that changed me. It really did. And it put my ethos more on customer service, because I kept seeing the repeat clients coming back. And yes, it's a totally different industry, sales and lettings, but the referrals I was then getting were unbelievable. Today's tenants then becoming tomorrow's landlords was unreal. And that, going back to that, or going forward a few years, I'll come back to that later, but making sure you give the great service at every single point became key to me. And Tristram Torrance, Mr. T, I call him, he gave me one little bit of advice, and that was one for today, one for tomorrow, and one for next year. You never know who you'll meet, but at some point they'll be your clients if you give them good service. And I've taken that with me since that point. So that was probably December 2008 that he said that to me, and I'll never forget that ever. You know, we've known each other for a few years now, and you've now invited me on here. You know, it's lovely, and I hope that's because of what we've done over the last couple of years. But I just think I really do take that. First impressions count. So you have to make sure that you are on your A game all the time.
Absolutely.
So from then, I was kind of many times I was headhunted and approached to go and work for different competitors in the Oxfordshire market. And I always was very open and honest with Mr. T, because I just had that relationship with him. First of all, it was try and get more money out of him. Got this job offer here, they're offering me more money. And that became a bit boring, because I genuinely did have all these offers that were coming through, which was nice. But I didn't want to leave because I had such a good work ethic and work-life balance, had a young family. We literally finished at 5:30. They made you take a lunch break. You only had to work 1 in 3 Saturdays till 1 o'clock. The work-life balance was really good. And financially, they looked after you as well. So I had no real reason to leave until I'd literally go to him and say, like, I've got this offer. What do you think? And he'll say yes or no, majority of the time no, because of X, Y, and Z. Have you thought about their staff turnover? Have you thought about their reputation? Yes, they're offering you more money, but why? They've had 3 managers in 6 months. It was all these things. And he just talked to me like a human being and not a boss. And then I was approached by, I would now say, Oxfordshire's leading agent, Brecon and Brecon. Keith Stacey is a fantastic estate agent there. And they approached me to open up their Abingdon branch, which is South Oxfordshire, alongside another gentleman who'd be running the sales. So I would manage the letting side, and and another gentleman would be running the sales side. And if I'd have ever left Finders Keepers, it was for that brand. They were the new forward-thinking boys who again offered great service. The marketing was second to none. They were doing video tours before everybody else. They were doing drone shots before everybody else. And this was sort of 2012-ish. Really forward-thinking. The first agency in Oxfordshire to have a marketing department. They were in-house photographers. They were very, very good. And I went to Tristram this one time with this offer, and I sat with him, and he said, "You've got to take it, Dale. You've got to take it." And I did. And I was gobsmacked, because I thought, why is he letting me go? you know, it was kind of, I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting him to say, no, you can't go, because he'd done that every other time. And then it became apparent that he wasn't well and he was leaving as well. And he went and had a triple heart bypass. Bless you, he's still here. He's now running a nice bed and breakfast in Cheltenham and you know, enjoying his retirement. And he's an author as well. Fantastic guy. Still keep in touch with him. And that sort of ended my finders keepers career, which was, that really did set me on that path to customer service. With an element of property investment as well. So understanding buy-to-let market, why landlords choose to invest. Some of them don't. Some of them are accidental landlords, but making them realise the benefits of it. And as a business, trying to keep those, you know, accidental landlords by either showing them and explaining to them the benefits of it, or providing them an amazing service where it just becomes a hassle-free, no-brainer to keep it. By either taking the property maintenance off of them and having a great management team, which we did, that looked after it. But more importantly, making sure that we put in great tenants. We find really good tenants that aren't going to cause them any hassle. We would turn down more tenants than we would accept applications. And I know that might sound normal, but we would wait and have void periods for a week or two. But we had a process which I find a little bit strange coming from Oxfordshire to the Northwest. And I don't know whether it's just because of a COVID thing, but we would know, and we would make sure we knew two months, maybe 6 weeks before the end of a tenancy, if a tenant was staying or not. And that was it. And if they were leaving, we would market that house and we would do viewings straight away. And we would make sure that we've got a tenant lined up for 5 days after that tenant leaves. We'd have a 5-day period in between, check out, maintenance, cleaning, inventory, straight back in. And I think ever since COVID, and I relocated from Oxfordshire to the Northwest just before COVID, and I didn't know whether it was something that's happened in the Northwest or whether it was a COVID implemented thing. At the moment, all I see now is houses just going empty and then viewings being taken, which in my opinion is crazy, because you're just maximising void periods for landlords. And that property could be empty for 6 weeks, 2 months, 10 weeks. And it's a lot of money. That's potentially a landlord's annual profit gone. Another story, going way ahead of myself here. So eventually I accepted the role for Brecon & Brecon, and we launched the Abingdon branch very successfully. We were within profit within 8 months after a huge investment, something they wasn't expecting. We were about 10 months ahead of schedule. It went very, very well. And at that point, I met a lady. We used to get them quite often, actually, not so much nowadays, but we used to get ladies and gentlemen walking into the office and saying, Dale, I've got X amount of money that I want to invest. And this particular lady came in when I was at Brecon & Brecon and said, Dale, I've got £1 million cash and I want to buy 3 houses, 3 apartments, she said. I said, okay, may I ask sort of why? Why are you going down that route? Why are you thinking 3 apartments? I've got this money and I want to invest it, and they'll give me good return with low maintenance. And I kind of sat there thinking, in my opinion, that's the wrong strategy. And one of the reasons why I love property and football as well is football and property are both a matter of opinion. 100% property is based on opinion. Your opinion to investment might be totally different to mine. And it's about an end goal and where you want to be in your life at the end. It's somebody's either exit strategy. It could be totally different from everybody else's. And she was telling me that she wanted to create a monthly income stream to supplement her early retirement because she just inherited this money. So I just sat with her and I said, look, I understand that, but these are the cons of buying these apartments in this specific development that you want to buy in. And I knew that development extremely well. Service charges were £350 a month. Ground rents were £90 a month. And then the acquisition costs of them were about £350. You could probably pick them up for about £325. and the rental returns were coming in at about £900 a month. So in Oxford, anybody would have been happy with a 5% return in those days. That wasn't meeting that. It was probably coming in at about 3%. And she said, I'm happy with that. It's more about the monthly income coming in, and I'll have, after costs, probably about 2,400 coming in. So you're probably a little bit high there, but if you take everything out, because you're going to need me to manage them, aren't you? And she said, oh, yes. I was like, yeah, you will. So you're probably going to be looking at about £1,800 net at the end. Can you live off that? She was, oh, it's a little bit less than I thought. I said, so how about if I can make you more money? And she said, well, how can you do that? I said, well, rather than buying these apartments in the centre of Abingdon, which are extremely nice, and they have probably a perception value because she'd own 3 luxurious apartments in the centre of Abingdon overlooking the Thames. I said, is it really about that, or is it about the investment and the monthly income coming in? And she said, well, ultimately it's about what hits my bank account at the end of the month. Okay, it's okay, right. Well, we've got 2 options we can look at. So at that time, I knew some people in the local planning department, and I had heard in the football changing rooms, it's all revolving, isn't it? Football and property, it's my life. In the football changing rooms, that they were just about to accept a planning application for a new train station in Oxford, Oxford Parkway. And that was going to be near Kidlington, which is sort of the northwest side of Oxfordshire. So I had already started telling my investors and my landlords, if you're looking at buying and investing now, I think Kidlington is going to be your next source. And in Kidlington, you could pick up a 2-bed terrace house for about £200,000 at that point. Mm-hmm. Rental incomes were still pretty much the same, about £1,000. So again, in terms of a return on investment, much better than that point. Mm-hmm. And I sat with her and I said, with your cash, you can buy 5 of these with no service charge, no ground rents, and you'll be getting about £5,000 a month, probably about £4,200 a month after our fees. And she was like, yeah, much better than that. That's great. And then I said to her, you got another option. And I explained to her my reasons why, because if she then looks to sell in 10 years' time after the train station's been built and complete, and the capital growth that I had foreseen in that area, she could sell and clear the finance. So I said, buy 10. She was like, I can't do that. I said, you can. Let's put £100,000 into a deposit, get a buy-to-let mortgage. The extra rent you'll be receiving will cover the mortgage costs. And it worked out that after all the mortgages she did, so I got nice referral fees from the mortgage guys. And then she got 10 mortgages on 10 properties, which I sourced for her. And she was bringing in her monthly income after all the mortgages was just shy of £7,000. Now each of those properties are worth more than £350,000. Mm. So I know, having spoken to her before I left Oxfordshire in 2019, that she'd actually inherited more money and cleared off those mortgages she's had. Wow. And after that period, wasn't long after then that I actually set up my own business. I kept thinking to myself, why am I making all this money for everyone else? And I was very, very career driven then. I was always chasing the job titles and chasing the money. And at that point, it was all about, I just had 2 young children. I've got to provide for them in the future. Can I build something that I can leave to them, a legacy? I was well known in the industry at that point. I was a regular on BBC Oxford. I was a columnist in the Oxford Times, nice broadsheet newspaper. And I had a name. I had people coming to me because of who I was. Even though I was still relatively young, early 30s, I was still perceived. I was named in the top 10 Oxfordshire property professionals. I had land people coming to me. I had loads and loads of opportunities coming my way, but I was always sort of held back by employment. Mm-hmm. Because of the nature of who I am, I would never want to do something on the side that's going to jeopardize my employment or put it into if I'm doing something on the side, I'm not giving my job full 100%. So I had to make a choice. And I met a gentleman who was an IFA, and he just said to me, let's start. His actual words were, if I can wave a magic wand there, what would happen? And I said, I'd have my own estate agency on the high street, and I'll have a brand that we can be creative with. And his words were, what do you mean creative? And I said, well, I love being able to be an estate agent. I love being a letting agent. I always think the estate agency side is the fun part, and the bit that you really get your teeth into, and you could have some creative flair. And then the letting side is very much, and I've always used this phrase, but the intelligent property person side of the game. And even back then, when we weren't full of all the compliance that we've got now, and the restrictions and the laws and legislations that are coming in and they're ever adding to it, he had to be the person that was on the ball all the time. See, the intelligent person's game. So to be a part of both of that gave you the fun element and the bit that kept you going as well. So I'd say the sort of continued career development path in the letting side. But the other side of me wanted to do something totally different. I wanted to get into the financial service side of everything. I wanted to get into the creative deal making. I wanted to get into what loads of people are doing now with, you know, getting some kind of property for nothing. And how can you use other people's money to make money? And that's what I said to him. And he said, well, I'm an IFA. I deal with people's pensions here. So we were able to set up going into the future, numerous different SIPs and do a little bit of property development.
What are SIPs for people that don't know?
Self-invested personal pensions. So you could take, his clients were able to take 25% of their pension out once they reached 55, and he was dealing with some high net worth clients. And I'll go into a little bit more about the projects that we did as I run through our journey with our estate agency that we had. We literally set up in a little desk, actually from my dining room table, working from each other's homes, going into his office. He had his offices for his IFA business, and I'd plonk my desk down there and I'd get a few people.
So at this point then you've got your business then, yeah?
Set the business up.
Yep.
Registered name, website. We spent, some money on marketing. I'd left Brecon & Brecon. They left me, shook hands. It was great, fantastic. And I had nothing. I had no clients. I had one house to sell. I didn't have one property to manage. And I honestly went with the intentions of not going to steal any of my old landlords back. Again, that to me is...
So you were covering both lettings and estate agency?
Yeah, sales and lettings. That's what we started as. And so my business partner, his IFA firm, they did mortgages. So we naturally referred into his business. It was sales and lettings all the way through. And I had a couple of people that I could call, that I was a plan of action to call, maybe some landlords that I knew of from my time at Finders Keepers. I would never have gone back to the Brecon & Brecon guys. So I'd just come back from that, and I was with them for a couple of years. Word started getting out and people were approaching me. It's sort of the earlier days of Facebook. I set up sort of my business Facebook. I was doing a lot through my personal Facebook. And it's great now when you look back. Sometimes it's great, but then you look back and cringe at some points when you see the posts that you put out in 2013 about your first house sale and you thought your marketing was amazing. And you look back now and go, oh my God, that was awful.
Let me just pause this episode for a moment to quickly introduce you to our episode sponsor, the Property Finance Collective. Transforming visions into reality requires not just a great idea, but the right financial support and the best possible team around you. Specialising in development finance, bridging finance and commercial mortgages, the Property Finance Collective are there to help you navigate complex markets to secure the funding you need, as well as being part of your team that you can rely on. With a flair for creative deal structuring, they tailor solutions that fit precisely with your project's demands, ensuring speed, efficiency and flexibility. They want to help you make the impossible possible. Now let's get back to the episode. So then from obviously setting the estate agency up, grew that to members of staff?
Oh, well, so at the end, when I eventually sold out, we had, there was 11 of us in the team.
Right, wow.
Yeah, so...
How did that sort of split between lettings and sort of sales then?
So we had 3 financial advisors. So, but by the end of it, we actually had created a financial service department as well. Okay. So we had a mortgage company. So at the end,
you had sales, lettings,
and financial services.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So we had it was all branded, all sort of, all together as one. And we had 3 mortgage brokers, all in-house, all employed. We had 4 members of the lettings team, property manager, 2 negotiators and a letting manager, myself, my business partner, who was sort of also into a retirement as much, going into the development side more so than anything else. And then we had some sales negotiators as well, and another lister.
Nice.
And that came with its stresses,
of course.
If I'm honest.
Yeah, of course.
We had a very healthy rental portfolio by that point that would cover the costs.
What's the sort of time frame of this then?
So that was 5 years.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so 2019 is when I exited the business.
So set it up 2014, grew it from...
End of 2013, really, and then really got started at the start of...
How did the sort of sale of that estate agency come about then? Who sort of acquired that? Was it another local agent?
It was my business partner.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, so he bought me out, and that was all driven because of the move to the northwest.
What sort of prompted that then?
My mum.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so family.
Yeah.
So we need to be closer. And if I'm honest, it was always our plan to move here, probably 15, 20 years earlier. The plan was to make our millions in Oxfordshire and retire in the cheaper northwest side of...
Your family from northwest then?
From Stoke-on-Trent.
And then you moved down...
Yeah, my family, my dad was in the army, so we used to move around quite a lot. And we settled in Oxfordshire in 1995.
Wow. So then from 1995 to 2019. No, sorry, when you had your first job.
Oh, yeah.
So when was that?
2000, in estate agency? Yeah. 2000.
So from 2000, then on to set your own up in 2014.
Yeah.
So 14 years of experience and growing your personal brand, as they call it these days, to then growing the estate agent, your own estate agent for 5 years, selling to your business partner, which then brings you to the north where you are today.
That's it. And if I'm honest, it's the best thing I ever did. And we look back on it now, and sometimes you sit with your wife and you sat on the sofa and you think, oh, did we make the right decision? Would we ever move back to Oxfordshire? My wife's family are still there. And we look back and we go, no, we wouldn't do it. This might be a little bit of a plug to the northwest, but I love it here.
Shout out northwest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a little bit of a buy into this because I was actually born in Blackpool, so I'm a northerner.
Nice, yeah.
And then I'm a southerner when it needs to be. So I'm all right, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm like a chameleon. If I want people to know I was born in Blackpool, now it's public knowledge. But I can be a northerner. But then if people call me a southern fairy, then I can say actually I'm more northern than you, mate.
I've got thick skin, yeah. Like these northerners. So what's in terms of like the property market then? Because I've sort of found with the show, Birmingham, very collaborative, very, everyone wants to do business together. The networking events are very, a lot of the same faces, a lot of stuff, the networking scene in Birmingham's amazing. A lot of crossovers with different events. Manchester, very different. It seems that there's a lot of networking events, but they all operate separately. So you never see the same faces, which is obviously another unique sort of way that the industry works. What is Oxford like compared to the north then?
It's a tough property market, Oxfordshire. It's not the same. And I think it's more of a personality trait, really.
In terms of?
So in Oxfordshire, as an estate agent and an estate agent owner, as a sales negotiator, if you walk down the street and walk past any other estate agency branch, they'd shun you. You would, their head down, there's no waving in the window, you are the enemy. And it's something that I hated, if I'm honest. I made it my point to try and be everybody's friend. And that was because you never know when you need that person. Now, whether that's as a sales negotiator, that could be your next boss, could be the next person to give you the next chance. As an estate agency owner, it could be your next staff member. And if you come across horrible, it's not great. The investor network in Oxfordshire, there's no property networking events, very, very few and far between. The development side of things, it's because it's so expensive there, It's a very niche market.
Of course,
it's high-end development. It's the build costs, it'd be even more through the roof now. The investment needed is more, but they're happier for lower returns. So I mentioned a little bit earlier that buy-to-lets and investment is, again, totally different. They're happy for buy-to-let landlord would be ecstatic if they got a 5.5% return.
That's what I'm getting in a Chase savings account at the moment. 0.4% less than that.
And that's crazy, isn't it? It's unbelievable. But with that on the flip, they're more likely to get a better capital growth. So because the market does expand, it accelerates so quickly there, they might have a property for 5 years and bought it for 200,000 and they make 5%, 4% maybe, and it covers the mortgage. But if they then sell it in 5 years, they might make a quick 80 grand. So it's different strategies. Again, as we mentioned at the start, it's a game of opinions, isn't it? It's what your strategy is, what works for you, what is right for you.
Of course.
And that's the difference there. But it's very cutthroat as well.
Do you find it's not as cutthroat in the north?
No, I really don't. And
what do you think that is?
Honestly, more chimney pots. There's so many more investments. So you drive through Oxfordshire, and this is no slant on the south or the north at all. It's just there aren't as many opportunities down there. Yeah, I could.
From an estate agent perspective,
from a developer's perspective, whether that's a buy-to-let person, whatever it may be, a serviced accommodation, buy-to-let, a flip investor, a developer to build new builds. There seems to be so many more opportunities in the Northwest. Just by walking to a local shop, you might see a derelict house as a terraced house that you could pick up for, in many locations across the Northwest for 60, 70 grand, maybe even a little bit more, which is quite a nice entry-level investment or a quick turnaround. And you could quite easily buy that, flip it, sell it all within 6 months with less than 100 grand's worth of investment. You're not getting that in Oxfordshire. You're really not. If you ever find a house that needs flipping, the market is so hot on it, it more or less goes for market value anyway. So these opportunities just don't come up very often, which is why I love the Northwest. From my point, either as an investor, I don't like selling things. That's my own personal opinion. So I've got a couple that I've bought cheaply, done up, kept it. Fine, no problem. Very lucky that they don't have the misfortune or fortune, however you want to take it, of finance. I don't have increased options, but that's my strategy. My goal in life was to have a couple of properties to supplement my pension and then leave to my kids when the time's right. Or wrong, however you look at it.
Are they in the north as well?
Yeah, just in Stoke.
Right.
Yeah, so just a couple of little terraced houses. That's it.
Bought in when you moved up here?
Yeah, as soon as I moved up here, bought those.
What sort of took you towards them then? Just good purchase price, good area?
Yeah, I know the area. So my family are from Stoke.
Was it that source through your own channels, or was that through an estate agency?
They were just on Rightmove.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so literally it was pre-COVID, so before the huge jump. And I came up with the intentions. My wife was very lucky to get a very good job straight away, and I had a pot of cash, and I thought, I've done my time. I've worked 16 hours a day. I've broke my back building this business. I don't really want to work for anybody else, having been employed for the last 5 years. Am I unemployable again? Am I a bit of a rogue? Could I take being told what to do? I didn't know was the answer. So I had this pot of cash. Let's be that property investor. And I went and bought these 2 properties, renovated them. And then I thought, I've really enjoyed this. But in the time that I had renovated them, COVID, I actually bought them pre-COVID, renovated them during the first lockdown.
Wow.
Promise I wasn't in. I was in my garden renovating, but I was doing the bits where they weren't big jobs. So when we say renovated, it was painting, decorating, carpets, one new kitchen. So it wasn't huge. I'm not talking about rebuilding and shaping the world here. And then when I come to get them revalued again, that after lockdown, the prices went through the roof, which was great if that's what you want to do. but so were every other projects. So I then had to sit back and go, right, I could sell these for 85k now, easily, maybe 190 because of the location. And I could make easy 50, 60 grand, easy. So, okay, can I then go and do this again? Do I want to do it again? Can I just keep hold of them? And
what was your sort of, okay, so you've looked at both options. What is your kind of process in terms of looking at the numbers? What drove you to the decision of, right, I'm going to keep them rather than saying, right, I'm going to flip them? Because my view on it is, I'm looking at property for me now is because I'm young, I'm trying to flip property so I can crystallize the profit, and then I can build cash quicker than I can through buy, refurb, refinance. It's slower. Whereas in flipping, I can build cash. So what was the kind of thought that went behind that outcome?
Yeah, I definitely get that question. And sometimes I re-ask myself that all the time. Did I make the right choice? But my goal in life has always been to be mortgage free, and have a couple of buy-to-lets to supplement a pension, and be able to leave my kids something tangible at the end. And I was very fortunate that I was in that position at that point. And then, whether we want to go into this or not, but I actually met a lady from Purple Bricks. They were the devil in my time as a business owner. I actually used to have, true story, when I first set up my business, and my business branding was purple as well. I used to have 2 purple Lego bricks at the bottom of my computer screen, thinking if they can do it in that model, I can do it. And they were my drive. I hated what they were all stood for, but you got a hand, hats off to the Bruce boys that they created something great. Okay, it's not there now. It's not as good as it was. But I met, during my time looking for properties, a Purple Bricks agent who I was a little bit inquisitive about how they made money, and how it all worked. So she told me about it, and I was bought into it, if I'm honest.
The Purple Bricks model?
Yeah, purely because of how much money their listers made. Can we go into that on here?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So being confident in my own abilities is a nice way of putting it. I knew that if I went to 20 valuations, I would get 18, and they were hungry sellers that wanted to put their property on the market, and they weren't just wasting my time. I would get at least 18 of those. So I thought, right, that's great. With Purple Bricks, you get paid on listings, not sales. So you would make between £200 and £350 per listing straight away. So I sat there thinking, all right, if I did 20 a month, it's probably about 25 hours work within the area that I lived in a month. And I could potentially make myself £5 grand a month just by working 20 hours a month. I didn't want to work full time. It was still a self-employed model. And then once those sell, you do get a little bit of money at the end. So you get a little bit of completion money. And then you get your uplifts on your financial services and your legals, etc. And it just tops it up.
That explains why Purple Bricks are so shite, or were. I don't know what they're like now. Obviously, they've been acquired. About with pushing sales through.
Yeah, because there's no financial incentive.
Yeah, of course.
So the financial incentive that I had.
Hopefully we don't get a cease and desist from Purple Bricks. But
I think I just get £48 per completion, but I'd get somewhere between 200 and 350 for a listing. So my focus was just list it. And it was literally about sort of just get it on the market. My integrity wouldn't let me just forget it, as where a lot of people did. They'd list it and forget it. I still kept in touch with my clients because they would then refer me to everybody else. So that integrity that I learned with my Finders Keepers days, I still have Mr. T and Mary Channer in my head going, call them back, make sure you speak to them, give them their weekly feedback. So I wasn't working all the hours God send. I would literally set out, and this is how easy it was. You would go to your calendar and say, right, I want to work between 2 and 4 on Monday. I'm not going to work Tuesday, so I won't put any availability in. I'll work between 10 and 2 on a Tuesday, and those appointments would just drop in. You didn't have to go and tap; they would just drop in at that point, and you would have as many as you wanted. Now, after the first few months of building this up and invoicing 3-4 grand for working minimal, the kids started then going back to school because lockdown had finished, etc. And I think it was like the September, October time, they'd gone off and it was okay. So I started opening my diary a little bit more because I got a little bit bored at home. I wasn't investing in property anymore. I'd made that decision to keep the two. I'd let them out. It was fine.
And that was because you were doing the Purple Brick stuff alongside it, or?
No, it's because I had made that conscious decision that I'd got to where I wanted to be.
Right, with you. Yeah.
So I'd got to where I wanted to be. I had everything I wanted. And it sounds bad. And I look back now and I even see opportunities now where I go, right, I can refinance these. But my wife always drags me back. She's like, Dale, don't risk it. And in some points she's right, because I could have bought 15 properties in the last 4 years, having been in auctions, and I could have refinanced my houses to the hilt, and our interest rates would be through the roof now. Yes, okay, I might have made some equity and some good profit from them, but I'd still be lumbered with the debt.
I think that's important to understand as well for people that are listening, that, it's not necessarily about taking risk, and it depends where you're at in terms of your journey. It's about doing what's right for you. And for you, obviously, it makes sense to have lower risk, get the income that comes from it, no mortgage, pass to the kids eventually. And I think there's that industry, I suppose, ethos that everyone needs to leverage, everyone needs to take risk, get commercial vows for bloody 2-bed ensuite HMO and never be able to sell it. And
do you know what? You are 100% right. And in my job now, I see it every day. Every day of the week, I have clients coming to me saying, Dale, I've got a commercial valuation on this HMO. What can you get for it? Well, I'm like, well, the house next door, which isn't a commercial HMO, is worth 200,000. Yeah, but I've got a valuation of 425. Like, people aren't buying that. I'm going to give you a bricks and mortar valuation. And that's what lenders are going to look at. So within the auction world, that's how we value. We can't really say, I can give you that commercial value based on that, and you might get this because the return's that much. I have to be pessimistic rather than optimistic, but we can go into that in a bit later. But
so jumping back to the Purple Bricks point then, so obviously you were finding the balance with the kids going back, and doing more listings, spending a bit more time on that. Yeah. And then that sort of led into the new opportunities, that the auction side, I guess. Well,
so what happened was the kids went back to school. I had more time. So I started opening up my diary more. So I was then listing even more. And my earning potential, my earnings went from 3 grand a month to 9 grand, 10 grand, 12 grand in some months, because I was just working full time. I got that buzz for it. This is easy. What am I doing? Why am I working everywhere else? I'm staying with Purple Bricks forever. And then at one point, they then announced that everybody that was self-employed, they were getting rid of that model because of IR35, and offered us an employed role where the salaries were nowhere near what we were generating before. So that's the point where I thought, well, I'm going to stay where I am for a bit because everyone jumped ship. And I thought, I'm not jumping ship. I can't just stand still. I'll stay where I am. It's fine. Something will come up. And then the opportunity to work for Auction House came up. I saw an advert and I thought, that's actually really interesting. I really like the idea of auctions. I didn't want to go back into branch estate agency. Again, I thought I was unemployable as such. And when I spoke to the guys at Auction House, they were made it very clear that it was very much an entrepreneurial kind of world. My role there was to start and build Auction House Cheshire in North Wales. They hadn't had a presence here for a long time, and they challenged me with building that back up again, which was when we first met, I think, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And I absolutely loved that time. What I felt, and the difference between estate agency and auctions, how I feel, and again, my opinion, is auctions is very much a business world. I have to be able to go to a property. I had this conversation yesterday, actually, and look at a property and almost work a mini business plan out and say, well, this is the end value. Identify as many or all of the issues that I can find in that property. So I have to almost be, without being qualified and advising, a structural engineer or a surveyor to identify as many issues as possible that need rectifying, what that's going to cost. So almost like a little QS in terms of estimating or guesstimating how much that's going to cost to get it back to where it should be, and then implement that profit margin as well for a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the toughest job is getting a client to understand that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if I can say it in those terms, maths don't lie. Numbers and figures just do not lie. And that for me is the exciting part of auctions, is you, again, going back to the lettings and sales side, it's a thinking man's game, person's game, apologies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I love auctions. You know, you really get your teeth into it, and everything you go to is totally different. And it's never that same old saying, but it's no 2 days are the same. And because of my connections, I have an area that I look after for the business, but my connections and my clients send me all over the UK.
Mm-hmm.
That I love as well.
Yeah.
Some people don't like traveling, but as long as I'm out seeing clients and helping people, and then I'll go anywhere.
So that cameos quite nicely into rounding this episode off then. So anyone that is looking to auction a property, where can they get in touch with Dale?
So they can get in touch with me either on my LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. So
Dale Cox, the auction man, that's in there. Look for me, the big guy with glasses on. Either or Edward Mellor Auctions.
Yep.
So if you search Edward Mellor on Google, you'll be able to find me. Make sure you ask for me. And either on Facebook or social media. I'm on Instagram as well. So yeah, Dale Cox.
Super. And genuinely, if you want to know anything about auctions, even if you're just looking for some consultation around a property that you're potentially looking to sell, or even if you're trying to, do auction trades or anything like that, Dale's a man to certainly speak to with that.
Yeah, we do lots of auction trading, lots of those. So I also like helping people get into that as well. Mm-hmm. So lots of people come to me saying, I want to be a trader, with no idea of what that actually means. And I'm lucky and fortunate enough to work with some of the country's top traders. So I know what they expect. I know they know what I expect. And I'm more than happy to help people to go through that and maybe take a few golden nuggets. And if I can help them into that journey, I'll be more than happy to do that.
Super. Wonderful. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Pleasure being here. Thanks very much.
Good stuff. Well, thanks again to the listeners. Obviously, if you're listening on YouTube, please do like and subscribe, and please do leave a review if you're listening to the audio version. Again, it does help the podcast grow, and hopefully we can add some more value to people's lives. Great story from Dale. Obviously, for anyone that's sort of looking to get into a estate agency potentially, it's a great episode. And obviously, thank you very much again for Dale coming on today. We'll see you again very soon. Take care. Goodbye.